Dr. William Woody, Associate Professor of Psychological Sciences at the University of Northern Colorado. Dr. Woody specializes in and has published peer-reviewed work in the areas of social influence and conversion phenomena. He has also been voted Best Professor.
So again, my name is Doug Woody. I'm an Associate Professor of Psychological Sciences at the University of Northern Colorado. We're talking about hate crimes, gang violence, and snake handling, extreme belief as a function of extreme behaviors. So we know, what I'd like to do is talk about some of the ways that we as humans justify what we do, and some of the ways that we continue to do things that may be destructive for ourselves or others, and the way we continue to justify them as we continue to do them. So I'm going to talk about human cognition and human behavior. We'll try to add a little bit of insight into what might happen across hate groups, gangs, and destructive groups, or religious or other organizations. We'll try to draw on a wide variety of examples, and my goal in this is to try to provide a notion of how some of the ways that these aspects work, and then some applications to these organizations, and then some suggestions for intervention based on this. And this is one small piece. Obviously, interventions in any of these organizations, or non-organizations, exist on many levels. They're difficult to arrange. It's a very tough issue. That's why we're here. But there's some small piece that we can add as part of the overall general notions, again, that web of ideas about helping people. So, just to walk on out there. Talking about beliefs and behavior. Overwhelmingly, people say, well, beliefs cause behavior. I do what I believe, no problem. It's easy. What I believe is what I do. That's simple. I ask people, well, do your behaviors shape your beliefs? And overwhelmingly, when I teach social psychology at UNC, which I'm doing at the graduate level this summer, which I've also done at the undergraduate level, people say, well, I just changed my behaviors. No problem. I do whatever I want. I know what I believe, but then I do whatever I want. My behaviors are independent of my beliefs. No problem. I do what I believe, and if I just, if I want to suspend my beliefs and behave in one way, it doesn't affect me. No problem. We're going to challenge that here. Which are easier to change? Overwhelmingly, again, my students say, no problem. I just changed my behavior. When we're faced with this, it is much easier to change how we think about our behavior and what I believe. Let's talk about this. So let's walk in here. So again, we notice that beliefs guide behavior. This is where my students start. I do what I believe. But just to add to that again, we know that how does behavior influence belief? This is going to be our question that we'll take all the way through here. So when beliefs and behaviors collide, some of you are familiar with this. Again, a lot of you are very familiar with this. This is classic work from Leon Festinger, talking about cognitive dissonance. We're not going to go all the way through dissonance theory here or talk about other competing theories and self-perception. But we're going to talk about a piece of this and how it can apply across organizations in these three general categories. When our behaviors and our beliefs do not match, we feel tension. When I'm doing something that does not fit what I want with my world, I feel tension. Festinger started proposing this in 1957. He said, well, not only do we feel tension, we feel strong motivation to reduce that tension. We feel that tension between what I'm doing and what I believe, and we want to bring those two in line. And again, how do we make that happen? To come back to an example I'll use a few times, I believe recycling is great, it's cool, and then I take my empty can, I drop it in the trash, and I walk away. What I believe and what I've done don't match. How do I handle this? Understand this is dazzlingly trivial compared to hate crimes, but let's start there. So we'll play with that. What do? Well, I could, of course, go dig my can out of the trash, or I could change how I think about that can. Let's come back to that in a moment. So we know, very classical experiment. And this came from Festinger and Carl Smith, 1959. They used a dazzlingly boring task. Here in psychology and experimental psychology, we have devised the single most boring activities known to humans. We're proud of this. We have skills here. What people did in this task, they did two different things. They spent 1/2 hour with a little tray. They put 12 spools on the tray. Then they emptied the tray, and they put 12 spools back on the tray. And then they emptied the tray. They used only one hand. They put 12 spools back on the tray. They did that for 30 minutes. Do you feel the pain? Then they went to the pegboard. And this is legendary. When it comes to tedium, almost nothing can beat the pegboard. 48 pegs, square holes. You use exactly one hand. You pull out a peg. You turn it a quarter turn. You put it back in. Next one, pull out a quarter, pull it out, turn it a quarter turn, put it back in. Do all 48, and then start over. Get to the bottom, start over. Get to the bottom, start over for half an hour. So we're bored. We're all on the same page here. After doing this dazzlingly boring activity, and the activity was designed, in fact, a quote right out of their article was, the hour that the participants spend working on the repetitive, monotonous tasks was intended to provide for each participant uniformly an experience about which he or she would have a somewhat negative view. Meaning, that was awful. I hated that. But then, as people were leaving, they trained the researcher very, very well to come up and say, you know, we're having a problem. Our study is on expectations. Some people are not given any expectations about these activities, which is the group you're in. Other people are told that this is great fun, and that's our independent variable. But the person who tells our participants that it's great fun isn't here right now. Would you do that for us? Would you go out there and just tell the next person who's coming in that this is a blast, they're going to love it, it's great? It's not, by the way. Again, we're all clear here. But this is a blast. I love it. It's great. And tell them that. So explain it to them. And, you know, we can help you out with that. We can compensate you a little bit. Can we give you $1 for that? Other people were told, could you lie to those folks and we'll give you $20. It's $19.59, 20 bucks. It's a lot of money. And those of you in college right now are thinking $20 is how much ramen? In 1959, 20 bucks was a lot of money. Other people in the control condition were just told, go on out. After they told the next participant, who was really a confederate of the experimenter, this is great, it's interesting, it's fun, it's exciting, you're really going to like it. It's awesome. They got paid for that, they walked out. Then they were interviewed about the task. So how did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Was it useful? Did you learn a lot? And we're going to do some more of this research. Could we call you back? So not saying, would you come back, but saying, we're going to do more. We'd like to call some people back. Can we call you? They ask those questions. So people either lied for $1 or lied for $20, or again, there's a control condition. So people face the dilemma, the people in the experimental conditions who were asked to lie. So if some folks were thought, again, about themselves, did I lie for cash? And if you got paid for 20 bucks, yep, I lied for cash. Right on. That's why I did it, because they paid me. People who got paid for $1 to lie. I just lied to a stranger for $1. Am I the kind of person who would lie to somebody I've never met for a measly $1? I mean, do I have to admit that about myself? I would lie to a complete stranger because some experimenter asked me to, and I did it for $1. I am that cheap and that morally flexible. That's really hard to say about us. So of course not. I wouldn't say that. So what do people say? I really liked the task. After they lie for $1, when you interview them later, overwhelmingly they say, it is interesting. They ask people to rate from -5 to +5. How much did you enjoy it? And I apologize for some of the formatting. How much did you enjoy it? The people who just didn't tell anybody anything. The control group said, nope, I didn't really like it. People who got paid 20 bucks to lie said, nope, didn't like it. People who lied for $1, would I lie for $1? I wouldn't lie for $1, therefore I must have really liked it. It was a hoot. Not only did I enjoy it, but notice there's that plus 1.20, would you participate in the future? Says, yes, I would love to come back and turn pegs again. That would be great. See what people have done. They have, when reward was low, people changed their beliefs to fit their behavior. They ended up in that place with dissonance. I am lying to somebody for $1. My behavior is that I have lied for a measly $1. I don't believe I'm somebody who would lie for $1. So which do I do? I could say, no, actually, by the way, it is terrible. Run, run. Or, I must really have liked it. Why on earth would I lie for $1? Therefore, I must not have lied. Therefore, it had to be a hoot. And I would love to do it again. Let's take this a little farther out there. So let's go ahead and walk a little bit that way. So we know this is one classical study I pulled out. Since this point in time, there have been over 2,000 studies on cognitive dissonance. So don't think I'm pulling one isolated topic out of nowhere. Again, in the last 5 decades, and the theory just turned 50 years old last year, over 2,000 peer-reviewed experimental data-based studies on this, seeing this effect in a variety of situations. Overwhelmingly, we find this to be strongest, these effects to be strongest when they affect our notions of who we are. We are good, ethical people. I'm a nice guy. I'm a great guy, in fact. And if I don't say that out loud, this is what we all like to think about us, that we are upstanding, moral, ethical, honorable people. We are good folks. We really are. When we behave in ways that we don't fit these views, we feel dissonance. So to come back to our trivial can, I believe in recycling. I throw my can in the trash. I face dissonance then between my beliefs and my behaviors. I can either change my behavior and go rifle through the trash can, or I can change my beliefs. You know, one can's no big deal. Ain't no thing. Just one can. Why do I worry about that? So I change my beliefs about recycling. I justify my behavior. And am I more likely to throw my can in the trash again? Yes, I am. Because, you know, it's just one can. I've already convinced myself of that to justify my behavior. I become likely to throw the can away again. Can we see how we're starting to get closer to the implications for groups? So we face the challenge. We know we're good. We're great people. But occasionally we do something bad. What do? Option one, I did something bad, therefore I'm not really a very good person. That's the place we can be. The other option was, of course, you know, maybe what I did wasn't bad. Maybe what I did is okay. And again, when my beliefs don't match my behaviors, I have that tension. I have to resolve it one way or another. Either I have to change my beliefs about I have to change my views about myself or change my behavior and not do it. Or what I did was not bad. What I did was right. I would do it again. Makes it quite the challenge. Let's apply this to the Iraq War, shall we? I'm going to pick on Republicans and Democrats, so everybody will feel appropriately encouraged here, so don't feel like I'm singling anyone out. Remember what people believed about the Iraq War. We'll be welcomed by everyone as liberators. The war will pay for itself. It will be short, and it will be justified by weapons of mass destruction. Everybody's on their own for whether or not this turned out to be the case. Yet, did we say, well, we went to war for those reasons with those explanations, but it was wrong? I'm really, really bummed about that. Let's adjust it. People said, no, it's still the right thing to do. Our beliefs about weapons of mass destruction and the justification of the war don't match our behavior. The war, based on what we thought going in, does now appear to be unjustified, but we're still there. We could either change our behavior. We didn't change our behavior. We had a surge. So we changed our beliefs about it. When you ask Republicans, now I'll pick on both political parties equally. When you ask Republicans, well, why are we still there? We changed the justification. It wasn't a bad thing to do. It was the right thing to do. We need to be there. The problem is just the war was fought the wrong way. That's the issue. When you ask Democrats, did you vote for the war in a place you didn't want to be? What do they say now? Oh, I didn't vote for the war. About half of Democrats did vote for it. About 20% of them now say, I voted for it. 30% have kind of lost that in there. And people just say, well, what do? I bring my beliefs in line with my behavior. I don't remember voting for the war. So forgetting has been very convenient. Both parties have to deal with this, and both parties have had to justify where they are and said either what I did is not bad. People say, well, I didn't vote for the war. I was never in favor of the war, even people who voted for it. Or what invading Iraq was very good. We just didn't do it right from other points of view. We continue to justify being there. This is part of the challenge. Let me apply this into a case of abuse. We're going to talk about pressures of relationship violence. There's a good seminar meeting on that a little bit later today. This is one small piece of that. There's a lot more to this. And I argue the same kind of stuff that we'll hear later today, that the pressures that shape people's views and behaviors in groups are very similar to the ones, in abusive groups, are similar to the pressures that shape people's behaviors in abusive relationships. This is a classic place to see it. I believe that I am a good person. The behavior is that I hit my romantic partner. Two choices. I did something bad. Somebody has to say, I hit my romantic partner. I may not be such a good person. Tragically, we don't hear that very often. Or I did something bad. I need to not do that again. We don't hear often enough. Where people end up is, my partner deserved it. It's justified. And does it become more likely to happen again? It does. It's not just on the abuser side, it's the other way around. It's, in cases of relationship violence, the person who's abused faces the dissonance between I'm a good and rational person who believes in myself, but I stay in this relationship even though my partner hits me. One choice is I stay in an abusive relationship even though I'm not someone who would accept abuse. I may not be behaving in a way that fits my beliefs about me. But option two is, of course, and it's down there too far to see, is I must deserve it. which we hear too often. People in abusive relationships and in destructive groups say, if it's so hard on me like this, I must deserve it. I must be devalued. I must not be worth much. We hear this across destructive groups. We hear this in people who are becoming initiated into gangs. Talk about people making that transition from being what folks sometimes call a wannabe to a gang member. You've got to believe. And people believe they deserve it. They bring their beliefs in line with their behavior consistently. There's a couple of factors that go here, just to add some notes. Getting people to commit behaviorally is a key part of this. If you get people to take even just a little behavior towards you, that's great. Maybe you've seen this on campus. If people walked up to you and asked you their final question, their response rate would be very low. If they really walked up to you and asked you the question they want you to ask, they really want to ask and say, could two of us come to your dorm room and outnumber you 2-to-1 and try to convince you to give up your religion and join ours and stay in your dorm room for as long as we can possibly use social influence to let us stay there? To try to change your religion, because we think you're wrong about that. Most overwhelmingly, people say no, but you get a little step. Would you like to take a survey? Yes. Do you think, and this comes right out of one that I took just the other year. In fact, a student of mine heard me talk about this in class and then had me take the survey. I did not ask him to think about that. I let that go. Everybody's on their own. Would you like to take a survey? Is religion important? Do you believe in God? If you believe in God, do you think more information about God is better or worse? And then you say, well, yes, yes, better, yes, yes, yes. And you say yes a couple of times, then could we come talk to you about this? Yes, and then they've got your dorm room number, and then there they are 2-to-1 with their videotape. And if they showed up and said, can we come and change your religion? Because we think that the fundamental stuff you believe is just wrong. So we'd like to adjust that for you and make it right. Overwhelmingly, people are likely to say, no, thank you. But if you get going, you can get there. The foot in the door is what people talk about. To pull up a graphic example, often we hear among people in these areas is people talk about boiling the frog. You do it slowly. You slowly ratchet things up. To bring an example from Jeannie Mills and the People's Temple, over the years in the group run by James Jones, the abuse increased very, 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 very slowly. If you went into your church this weekend and they said, okay, your child has misbehaved, it's time for this very large human with a piece of wood to paddle your child, a whole lot of us, hopefully all of us, would pick up our child and run for it. Jeannie Mills and Al Mills sat and watched as people paddled their child. They didn't do that in one step. They had to be there for years. They had to say, yes, I'll give up sleep. Now that I've given up sleep, now I'm really committed to that. Yes, I will work longer hours. Yes, I will give up more of my time and my paycheck to the group. Yes, I will sign a blank sheet of paper. Yes, I will watch while other people are verbally disciplined. Yes, I will watch while other people are engaged in physical combat for discipline. Yes, I will watch as other people get paddled. Yes, I will watch as other people's kids get paddled. And then it's a very small step to watching their own child get paddled. The steps are key. Another part of this that we see throughout the literature on cognitive dissonance is choice. If you wake up in the morning and somebody said, you joined the group because we held your hand and made you sign it, that's not you. That's not a behavior you have to justify. You are out of here. But if you choose to be there, you'll get there. To pull another example this way, if you said, I want to join a group, and to join that group you need, again, to get hit with a wooden paddle by a bunch of strong guys you've never seen before, well, I'm speaking to the men here, consuming large quantities of alcohol, the notion is, well, probably not, until you start to join that group. And largely those have moved away, especially in nationally regulated fraternities and sororities, but they're not totally gone. We see this also in another classic sales technique, which is the lowball. Once you decide, once you choose to buy, then you are committed. And this is a great one. You've probably had this happen to you buying cars. You want to buy a Jeep Wrangler. I was at Jeep.com just last night. You know, you can buy a Jeep for $19,360. It's a nice idea, isn't it? Great. And you say, yes, I would like to do that. And you behaviorally commit. And they say, well, you don't want the little four-banger engine, do you? Okay, well, that's a little more. You still want it, right? Oh, yeah, I'd still want to buy the Jeep. You don't want those cheesy little street tires, do you? You know, you don't want the AM radio. You want a real sound system, right? And by this time, people are saying, no, I wanted to buy a Jeep for less than 20 grand. But I don't want those cheesy little tires either. But once I've committed, there I am, and the Jeep as shown is not 19,360, it is 28,145. They know that. And to my knowledge, that's even without the optional winch package. I mean, would you want to be out there without the winch package? So once you've committed, then they slowly ratchet it up. The small steps are critical, are absolutely central for all of this. Other groups do this, including the military. Remember, boot camp is a behavioral change program. The military, I don't think, consulted with Alcoholics Anonymous on this, but you know their phrase. You can't think yourself into a new way of acting, but you can act yourself into a new way of thinking. I know folks who have said, well, I won't be affected by boot camp. It won't bother me at all. I won't be that pro-Army when I come out. Folks are pro-Army when they come out. It works. It really works. It's been very well designed when you act that way long enough, in every way. Because you know, you run in the military, it's just one big mob, right? You're just moving along. Oh no, you run in rhythm. You get that rhythm. You work together. Each little step takes you further. And notice, I'm talking about these as tools. Occasionally I have folks who are saying, are you telling me that Alcoholics Anonymous functions like a destructive group? I argue that these factors work across groups, whatever that group is. I think Alcoholics Anonymous is great. The military does wonderful things for all sorts of people. Lots of mainstream churches do this. Remember that free package you get from the person who wants you to buy their Amway products? And that you pick up and you bring into your house and you behaviorally commit to and use, and now you have something with their card to find them to buy more stuff like that? You know, a lot of people make a lot of money doing Amway. It's not necessarily bad for anybody in any way like that. But there you are. What do you do in high school sports? You don't start right out of the chute at 2-a-days. You commit. You decide to go there. You start to work out. You start to hit the weight room. And then there you are at 2-a-days in the fall, talking about high school football. We also see this then, of course, in hate groups, gangs, and destructive religious groups, which is where we're going to take these ideas. Once we behaviorally commit, again, we bring our beliefs in line with our behavior. So implications this way. Again, behavior drives belief. Once people publicly choose and commit, once they choose to behave in a specific way, people change their attitudes to accept their actions. This is particularly relevant in groups like this, as we talk about hate groups, gangs, and abusive groups.